Hello everyone, John AG here. Welcome back to my channel Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, the real market updates that everyone else cannot or will not tell you. So please subscribe to this channel, and I love you all, my subscribers, for your relentless support. And please, I urge you to watch this video till the very end, because YouTube will not push my videos to more people. The algorithms favor the comforting lies. They do not favor the brutal, unfiltered truth. I need you to stop whatever you are doing. Put down your phone, turn off the television in the background, and listen to me with every ounce of focus you possess. We are no longer dealing with hypotheticals. We are no longer discussing what might happen in the next quarter or the next year. You are standing in the middle of it right now. The tectonic plates of the global economy are violently shifting beneath your feet, and the stock market crash we have warned about has officially begun. It is unfolding in real time, hidden behind algorithmic trading bounces and the desperate, breathless reassurances of Wall Street talking heads who need you to keep your money in the machine. But this message, this urgent, unvarnished transmission, is not for everyone. If you are 25 years old playing with disposable income on a trading app, this video is not for you. You have the ultimate luxury of time. You can lose everything today and spend the next 4 decades of your life rebuilding. This message is specifically, exclusively, and urgently engineered for those of you who are 50 years of age or older. If you are 50, 55, 60, or standing on the very precipice of your retirement years, the rules of the financial universe have just fundamentally altered, and no one in the mainstream media is going to give you the new playbook. The illusion of time and the reality of 2026. When you cross that half-century mark, your relationship with time completely transforms. Time is no longer a vast, limitless ocean that you can carelessly sail across. It becomes a finite, precious, heavily guarded commodity. It is the one single asset that the Federal Reserve cannot print, that the government cannot subsidize, and that you cannot buy back once it has been squandered. In the financial industry, they talk endlessly about time horizons. They tell you to just buy the dip and wait it out. They tell you that the market always goes up over a 20-year period. But what if you do not have 20 years to wait for your portfolio to recover? What if you need that capital in 5 years to fund your medical care, to support your grandchildren, or simply to buy the groceries that are doubling in price every few years? But you cannot eat a line of code. You cannot heat your home in the dead of winter with an artificial intelligence model. The world is violently waking up to the fact that physical reality still dictates human survival. The billions of dollars poured into data centers and unprofitable software companies masked the deep structural rot accumulating in the real economy. And now, the bill has come due. The geopolitical chokehold on your wealth. Simultaneously, we are being battered by the second force, a brutal, unforgiving real-world energy and supply chain shock emanating from a fractured geopolitical chessboard. The conflicts in the Middle East and Eastern Europe have metastasized. They are no longer regional tragedies. They are global economic chokeholds. When shipping lanes are contested, when pipelines are threatened, and when the absolute bedrock of the global economy, energy, is weaponized, it acts as a suffocating, inescapable tax on every single moving part of human civilization. Inflation is not a temporary glitch. It is not transitory. It is the silent, insidious thief that slips into your bank account in the dead of night and steals the purchasing power of your life's labor. It is rearing its ugly head again, stronger and more entrenched than before. The central banks are caught in an agonizing, impossible trap of their own making. If they cut interest rates to try and artificially prop up the collapsing stock market, they risk unleashing a hyperinflationary firestorm that will burn the purchasing power of your retirement savings to absolute ash. But if they keep interest rates high to fight that inflation, they crush the debt-laden corporations, they bankrupt the over-leveraged commercial real estate sector, and they trigger the exact stock market crash we are witnessing today. There is no magical escape hatch. The era of easy money, the era where every asset went up regardless of its underlying value, has violently ended. If you are over the age of 50, you carry a distinct advantage. You have lived through history. You bear the psychological scars of past market massacres. You remember the euphoric madness of the dot-com bubble and the sickening crash that followed in the early 2000s. You remember the visceral, stomach-churning terror of the autumn of 2008 when the global banking system was literally hours away from total disintegration and your retirement accounts were slashed in half almost overnight. You survived the unprecedented shock of 2020. You are a survivor, but I need you to understand, with absolute, crystalline clarity, that what is unfolding right now in 2026 is a completely different beast. In 2008, the rot was confined to bad mortgage debt in the private banking sector. The solution, while painful, was mechanically simple. The The central banks turned on the printing presses, bailed out the financial institutions, and flooded the global system with liquidity. They papered over the crisis. Today, the problem is not just bad private debt. The problem is sovereign debt. The problem is the money itself. The United States government is drowning under a mountain of debt so incomprehensibly massive that the interest payments alone are consuming the national budget. You cannot print your way out of a crisis when the currency itself is the thing losing value. You cannot print millions of barrels of oil. You cannot print a secure, uncompromised global supply chain. You cannot print peace between hostile nuclear powers. The parable of two retirements. Allow me to share a story that perfectly encapsulates the gravity of your current situation. It is the story of two men, Thomas and David. Both were 60 years old, standing on the edge of the 2008 financial crisis. Both were hardworking, honest men who had sacrificed their time, their health, and their youth to build a respectable nest egg. Both trusted the system implicitly. When the macroeconomic cracks began to show, Thomas did what 95% of retail investors do. He turned on the television and listened to the mainstream financial media. The talking heads, with their expensive suits and confident smiles, looked directly into the camera and told him, "Stay the course. The fundamentals of the broader economy remain incredibly strong. Do not panic sell. Time in the market beats timing the market." Thomas, operating out of a deeply ingrained, completely misplaced sense of loyalty to a financial system that viewed him as nothing more than exit liquidity, left his portfolio entirely untouched. Within a matter of months, his life savings, the physical manifestation of 40 years of labor, were completely decimated. The psychological toll was infinitely worse than the financial one. Thomas spent the next decade of his life not traveling, not enjoying his grandchildren, not resting, but desperately, anxiously clawing his way back to baseline. He traded his golden years for a state of perpetual financial anxiety. He was forced to work well into his late 60s, his dream of a peaceful, dignified retirement shattered by the unchecked hubris of Wall Street. David, conversely, paid attention to the cold, hard, unforgiving macroeconomic reality. He realized that the mathematical equations governing the market no longer made sense. He looked at the underlying debt structures, he recognized the irrational exuberance of the crowd, and he identified the systemic danger. David did something that requires immense, almost superhuman emotional courage. He stepped away from the herd. He ruthlessly liquidated his most speculative, high-risk equity positions. He moved a massive portion of his wealth into cash, into physical precious metals, and into defensive, reliable, dividend-producing assets. When the market inevitably imploded, David did not lose his mind because he had not lost his money. He had built a fortress around his capital, and when the dust finally settled and blood was running in the streets of the financial districts, David had the dry powder, the pure liquidity, to purchase world-class assets at a fraction of their historical cost. David fundamentally understood the absolute golden rule of wealth preservation for the older generation. The return of your capital is infinitely more important than the return on your capital. My friends, if you are 50 or older right now, you must become David. You must violently shed the psychological conditioning that Wall Street has drilled into your mind for the past 4 decades. The traditional 60-40 portfolio, the supposedly fail-safe strategy of holding 60% stocks and 40% bonds, is a dangerous relic of a bygone era. For 40 years, bonds acted as your financial shock absorber. When the stock market went down, interest rates would fall, bond prices would rally, and your portfolio would be protected. But in an era of sticky, structural, persistent inflation and out-of-control government deficit spending, bonds are no longer a safe haven. They are certificates of guaranteed confiscation. If inflation is running at 5% or 6% in the real world, and your government bonds are paying you 4%, your real return is deeply negative. After taxes, you are actively bleeding purchasing power every single second of every single day. The old maps will lead you straight off a cliff in this new territory. The architecture of financial survival. If the crash has begun, if the global geopolitical order is violently realigning, and if you are staring down the barrel of your retirement years, what are the concrete, actionable, unapologetic steps you must take right this very second to protect your family, your dignity, and your legacy? First and foremost, you must perform a ruthless, utterly emotionless audit of your entire financial existence. Hope is a beautiful, necessary human emotion in our personal lives, but it is a catastrophic, wealth-destroying investment strategy. You cannot simply close your eyes, hold your breath, and hope that the market will magically bounce back tomorrow. You must look at every single asset you own and ask yourself a brutal, uncomfortable question. If the stock market drops another 30% or 40% from this exact level, will my current lifestyle survive? Will I lose my home? Will I become a burden to my children? If the answer is yes, or even maybe, you are carrying far too much risk for your age. You must immediately identify and surgically remove the speculative fat from your portfolio. Those high-flying technology stocks with astronomical price-to-earnings ratios, the unprofitable growth companies that promise the moon but deliver no free cash flow, the digital assets that exist only on a screen, these are the absolute first lambs to be slaughtered in a global liquidity crisis. You are not 25. You do not have the luxury, the time, or the energy to sit through a grueling 10-year secular bear market. Take your profits where you still have them. Cut your losses on the garbage assets before they go to zero. Raise your cash reserves aggressively. I know what you were thinking. I know the financial advisors tell you that holding cash is terrible because of inflation. Yes, cash will lose a small, incremental percentage of its purchasing power to inflation over time. But in a severe, cascading market crash, cash is the ultimate defensive weapon. Cash gives you the one thing that money is actually designed to buy: optionality. It gives you profound peace of mind. It allows you to sleep soundly at night while the rest of the world is staring at the ceiling in cold sweats, wondering how they are going to pay their bills. Secondly, you must anchor your wealth in physical, undeniable reality. We are transitioning violently from a financialized, paper-driven economy to a resource-based, tangible economy. The paper wealth of the last 15 years was a central bank-induced hallucination. Real wealth cannot be printed, it cannot be hacked, and it cannot be deleted by a keystroke. If you are over 50, it is absolutely imperative that a meaningful portion of your wealth exists completely outside of the digital, interconnected, highly leveraged banking system. I am talking about the ultimate historical safe havens: physical gold and silver. Let me be very clear so that you do not misunderstand my intentions. Gold is not an investment designed to make you fabulously wealthy. Gold is financial insurance. It is a 4,000-year-old store of value that carries absolutely zero counterparty risk. When a bank goes under, your deposits are at risk. When a company goes bankrupt, your stock is worthless. But gold relies on no one's promise to pay. When desperate governments inevitably devalue their fiat currencies to service their astronomical debts, physical gold violently revalues higher to preserve your purchasing power. Thirdly, your entire psychological framework must shift away from capital appreciation and obsessively focus on cash flow. The mindset of the novice, younger investor is entirely fixated on the price of the asset. They want to buy a stock at $10 and pray it goes to $100. At 50 plus, your mindset must violently pivot toward income generation. You must look at your portfolio and ask, how much pure income is this generating for me every single month, regardless of what the chaotic stock price does on a Tuesday afternoon? You need to acquire assets that actively pay you to hold them. I am talking about high-quality, blue-chip, dividend-paying equities with a multi-decade history of not just paying, but steadily increasing their payouts even during the darkest recessions. I am talking about productive real estate that generates consistent, inflation-adjusted rental income. I am talking about short-term treasury bills that are yielding a guaranteed, risk-free return without exposing you to the devastating duration risk of long-term bonds. The psychology of the herd and the courage to stand alone. Let us dig much deeper into the raw psychology of this exact moment in time. Why is it so incredibly, agonizingly difficult to make these necessary changes? Why do so many intelligent, capable people freeze when the warning sirens are blaring? Because human beings, on a deep evolutionary level, are wired for social conformity. We want to be part of the tribe. We want to do exactly what our neighbors are doing. When everyone at the country club, or in the office break room, or at the family barbecue is loudly bragging about their massive stock gains or their crypto portfolios, it feels terrifying to step away from the casino table. It feels like you are missing out on the easiest money in history. You feel foolish. But I want you to burn this truth into your mind. The crowd is almost always violently, catastrophically wrong at the major turning points in economic history. The crowd, driven by blind greed and FOMO, buys at the very top of the market. And that same crowd, paralyzed by fear and margin calls, sells at the absolute bottom. To survive the economic carnage that is unfolding in 2026, you must be willing to look foolish in the short term to absolutely guarantee your survival in the long term. Think deeply about the psychological weight of losing your retirement. It is not just about the digital numbers on a bank screen going down. It is about what those numbers represent. That money is the physical manifestation of your life's precious energy. It is the thousands of mornings you forced yourself out of bed at 6 a.m. It is the brutal commutes in the freezing rain. It is the missed family dinners, the stress, the physical labor, the sacrifices you made instead of taking a vacation. Your savings are your stored life energy. To lose that energy to a completely predictable market crash simply because you refuse to read the writing on the wall is a tragedy of the highest order. It fundamentally robs you of your independence. It strips you of your agency. It forces you to become entirely dependent on a government that is already drowning in over $35 trillion of debt and cannot even balance its own checkbook. It forces you to become a financial burden on your children at the exact moment in their lives when you desperately wanted to be in a position to help them buy a home or start a business. This is the core reason I am speaking to you with such profound, unyielding urgency today. The macroeconomic indicators are not just flashing warning signs, they are screaming at us. Global gross domestic product growth is violently stalling. We are witnessing major, permanent structural slowdowns across Europe, driven by the catastrophic loss of cheap industrial energy. We are seeing emerging markets entirely fracture under the crushing weight of higher United States interest rates and a strong dollar. We are watching a complete historical realignment of global trade routes as the world aggressively fractures into competing, hostile geopolitical blocs. The three-decade era of cheap, frictionless, highly optimized global trade is over. And when trade becomes expensive, fragmented, and militarized, everything in your daily life becomes exponentially more expensive. This means that corporate profit margins, which have been artificially, unnaturally inflated for 20 years by cheap labor and cheap money, are going to compress aggressively. The stock market valuations we see today are currently pricing in a perfect utopian world. They are pricing in smooth, uninterrupted economic growth, a magical return to low inflation, and a peaceful resolution to global conflicts. If you are 50 or older, you possess a superpower that the younger generations simply do not have yet. You possess wisdom. You have seen the cycles. You know in your bones that nothing goes up forever. You know that human nature is inevitably driven by wild, pendulum-swinging cycles of fear and greed. Right now, the institutional algorithms and the Wall Street elites desperately want you to be greedy. They need you to be greedy so that they can quietly offload their toxic, overvalued assets onto retail investors. They need you to hold the bag. They need you to confidently buy the dip so that the billionaires can exit their positions with their fortunes intact. Do not play their rigged game. You have worked far too hard for far too long to end up as collateral damage in a wealth extraction scheme designed by people who view you as nothing more than a statistic. Overcoming the paralysis of fear. I want to speak directly, heart to heart, to the men and women watching this who feel a cold, heavy knot of anxiety in their stomachs right now. Perhaps you are looking at your 401k, your IRA, or your pension statements, and you are already seeing the balances start to bleed out. You might feel a profound sense of paralysis. The human brain, when confronted with an overwhelming, complex, systemic danger, often defaults to the freeze response. We bury our heads deep in the sand, hoping against hope that if we simply refuse to look at the brokerage statements, the financial losses aren't actually real. I am begging you, with everything I have, do not freeze. Action is the only known antidote to fear. The very moment you decide to take control of your portfolio, the moment you make that difficult phone call to your broker, the moment you confidently click sell on a toxic, overvalued asset and move that hard-earned money into absolute safety, you will feel a profound, overwhelming sense of relief wash over you. You will instantly reclaim your power. You will stop being a victim of the market and start being the architect of your own financial fortress. To truly protect yourself, you must look beyond just your investment portfolio. You must aggressively audit your personal balance sheet. In an environment of severe economic contraction and high interest rates, debt is an absolute financial cancer. If you are currently carrying high-interest consumer debt, revolving credit card debt, or a dangerous variable rate mortgage, you must make it your absolute, non-negotiable priority to eliminate it from your life. In a stock market crash, credit markets completely freeze. Banks panic and stop lending. Credit limits are slashed without warning. If you lose your job, if your business revenue drops, or if your pension is cut, the compounding interest payments on your debt will act as an iron anchor, dragging you and your family violently underwater. Liquidate whatever non-essential assets you have to in order to get out of toxic debt. Sell the extra car, downsize if necessary. A fully paid off home and absolutely zero credit card debt provide a psychological and financial fortress that no market crash, no recession, and no central bank policy can ever breach. If you have the financial means, you must start thinking deeply about legally diversifying your assets across different, stable jurisdictions. I am not suggesting that you need to pack up your entire life and permanently relocate to a foreign country, but having a legally compliant offshore bank account, storing some physical precious metals in a secure vault outside of your home country, or owning a piece of productive real estate in a stable, neutral jurisdiction is the ultimate fail-safe hedge against severe domestic, political, and economic instability. You do not want all of your life's work trapped under a single, desperate government's control. The human cost and the generational opportunity. Let us return to the deeply human element of this unfolding crisis. Throughout my career, I have sat across the table from countless people in their 60s and 70s who lost absolutely everything in previous market crashes. I have looked into their eyes. I have seen the tears stream down their faces. I have heard the raw, agonizing regret in their voices. They all say the exact same thing to me. John, I knew something was wrong. I felt it in my gut. I saw the prices going up. I knew the math didn't make sense. But I listened to my broker, I listened to the TV, and I didn't act. The coming months and years are going to require immense, almost stoic psychological resilience. The stock market crash that has begun is not going to be a swift, clean, V-shaped recovery like the artificial money-printed bounce we saw in 2020. Do not expect the Federal Reserve to come riding in on a white horse to save your portfolio this time. Their hands are tied by inflation. But within this terrifying chaos, there exists a profound, life-changing opportunity. A market crash is not the end of the world. It is simply a mechanism for the transfer of wealth. Wealth is never actually destroyed in a crash. It merely changes hands. It moves swiftly from the hands of the impatient, the greedy, and the over-leveraged, directly into the hands of the patient, the prepared, and the highly liquid. It moves from those who were arrogant enough to think the party would never end to those who were humble enough to prepare for the storm. If you follow the precise steps I am laying out for you today, if you aggressively raise your cash reserves, if you completely eliminate your toxic debt, if you anchor your wealth in hard physical assets, and if you obsessively focus your strategy on reliable cash flow, you will not just merely survive this economic crash. You will be perfectly positioned to thrive in the aftermath. Imagine the profound power of being the person who is sitting on a fortress of pure liquidity when the market finally bottoms out. While everyone else is panic selling their homes at a massive loss, while they are liquidating their retirement accounts just to buy basic groceries, you will be the one stepping into the smoking ruins of the market with a calm, rational, unburdened mind. You will be acquiring world-class assets, prime real estate, and vital businesses for absolute pennies on the dollar. You have the rare historical opportunity to build massive, multi-generational wealth, not during the euphoric boom times, but by standing strong and being the sole provider of liquidity during the ashes of the bust. This channel, Aurex, is entirely dedicated to guiding you through this exact, treacherous process. I am not here to sell you comforting doses of hopium. I am not here to coddle you with false, sugar-coated reassurances that everything is going to be fine if you just close your eyes. I am here to tell you the raw, unfiltered, brutal truth, because I respect you and your lifetime of hard work far too much to ever lie to you. The mainstream media apparatus is entirely owned and operated by the very same massive corporate conglomerates that absolutely need you to remain blind to the reality of the situation. They will attempt to gaslight you at every single turn. They will tell you that the inflation destroying your budget is just a temporary anomaly. They will tell you that the catastrophic conflicts in the Middle East are perfectly contained. They will tell you that artificial intelligence will magically, effortlessly save the global economy. They are lying to your face, and they know they are lying. You, the viewer who has crossed the age of 50, you are the absolute backbone of this entire society. You are the ones who built the physical infrastructure we rely on. You are the ones who raised the families, who paid the exorbitant taxes, and who kept this entire fragile, teetering system running for decades. You absolutely deserve to live your final golden decades in total peace, unshakable security, and profound dignity. You do not deserve to be financially ruined by reckless central bank policies, out-of-control deficit spending, and global geopolitical wars that you had absolutely no part in creating. Take a deep, steadying breath right now. Look at your spouse. Look at your children and your grandchildren. Remind yourself of what is truly, fundamentally important in this short life. Money is not the goal itself. Money is simply a tool. It is a tool to fiercely protect the people you love, to shield your family from the chaos of the world, and to buy you the ultimate luxury, the freedom to spend your remaining time on this earth exactly as you choose. Do not sacrifice your precious peace of mind or your family's future security on the altar of Wall Street's insatiable greed. As we navigate the dark, turbulent waters of 2026 and beyond, I will be standing right here with you every single step of the treacherous way. I will be meticulously analyzing the macroeconomic data, I will be watching the subtle shifts in the geopolitical tectonic plates, and I will be providing you with the exact, actionable strategies you need to pivot your portfolio and protect your family's legacy. Please, take a moment right now to share this video with every single person you know who is over the age of 50. Share it with your aging parents, your uncles, your lifelong friends, your colleagues who are planning their retirements. Send it in an email, post it on your social media, text the link to your family group chat. They desperately need to hear this unvarnished message before it is completely too late. The small, narrow window of opportunity to pivot and protect your accumulated wealth is closing more rapidly with every passing day. Once the true, visceral panic finally sets into the broader public, the financial exits will be unimaginably crowded, and the price of safety, the price of gold, the price of liquidity will skyrocket completely out of reach. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for giving me your most valuable asset today, your time. Time, as we have established, is the one thing you can never get back, and I do not take it lightly that you chose to spend it here with me, arming yourself with the truth. Stay incredibly vigilant. Stay educated on the facts, not the narrative. Stay fiercely courageous in the face of the herd. The economic storm of the century is no longer approaching. It is here, raging outside our doors. But together, armed with truth, liquidity, and hard assets, we will navigate safely through it. I am John A.G. This is Aurex. Protect your family, protect your hard-earned wealth, and I will see you in the next video.